Any remarks to the agenda? That is not the case. Chair's announcements. I think we should ask in the course of tomorrow our rapporteur on firearm, to say it officially, to explain us the situation which we faced there after that what happened over the weekend. That would be perhaps the reason to discuss that. Perhaps that can be arranged. Minutes, any problems? That's not the case. We come now to the first real point, the exchange of views with Giorgi Margvelashvili, President of Georgia. Mr. President, thank you very much for coming and joining us and taking the time to discuss important role, but also for us. First of all, we want to strengthen the right of the nations of that part of the world and that part of Europe, that they have the sovereign rights to make their decisions, which includes the possibility of implementing treaties which are decided, for example, with the European Union. And I believe that we have to be helpful under such pressures, such massive activism, aggression of a big neighbor in Ukraine, but also your country has some experience about that. And therefore I think that must be the number one point, that we want to help that this association agreement and especially a free trade agreement can be implemented on both sides in order to have a chance in these countries of the transformation process which is needed, that such countries and your countries have the chance to develop in a proper way for democracy, the rule of law, and especially also for the economic and social order which gives your people, your citizens, a better life perspective. I think that we have also discussed the question of visa liberalization. It is quite interesting that we had last week a meeting with members of Foreign Affairs Committees of the national parliaments, where we agreed that if that not immediately would be possible, there's a full visa liberalization, that at least we have a fee-free visas for the summer months for the young people of Georgia, that they can travel in Europe, and the Ukrainians and also the Russians. This would be helpful. The more Russians would come to Europe, the less they might be victims of certain propagandas. And therefore, I think you see they have this chance to discuss these questions with you. I would like to give you the floor. And then I would like to give the floor to Mr. Karim. Is he here? No, he's not. He's not yet here. The delegation. So, President, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dear members of Parliament, it's an honor to be here, and especially at this time where we are preparing for one of very important and significant steps in our foreign and I would say domestic political process, which is Riga Summit. And let me shortly and briefly share with you some of our thoughts and opinions for the upcoming event and how we've been preparing for it and how it and what are our expectations. Year 2014 was an important year for Georgia, for Ukraine, and for entire Europe. And I believe some of very serious questions have been raised during this year, and the answers have to be delivered in one or another format in the year 2015. And part of the answer, I believe, is linked and associated with Riga and what will be the decisions taken in Riga during the Riga Summit, and what will be the response of our friends and allies to all the complications that have emerged in Ukraine, have emerged around the Eastern Partnership format. Georgia has entered Eastern Partnership actively in 2009. It was a time shortly after the war, a time that was very difficult for our country, and the Eastern Partnership has created a very important agenda for us, agenda that my country has actually actively used and utilized during these 5 years. What we've done in our country was we've introduced a very active reform agenda. We've entered into a very intensive dialogue with our European partners, and we have used these 5 years to reform, to develop and to further our society, our political system, to the values and the goals of Eastern Partnership. Furthermore, we have clearly stated, after the signature of association agreement, that European perspective is something that we are looking for, and it's an orientation, it's a cultural, political and geopolitical orientation that has been taken not by one of our governments, but by our culture, by our society at large. In this format, we have been preparing for this important event and has done an impressive job, an impressive national agenda that has been reflecting in the reports of our European partners. So when we are looking at Riga Summit, we are looking at an event which will clearly understand, that will clearly describe what Georgia has done and will give a clear response to those questions that I have mentioned before. And the questions are following. Do the nations that are around Russia, do they deserve an opportunity of being free, democratic, of making their free choices, and do they deserve support and protection from their friends? How do we build the future of those two economic blocs that have basically divided the 6 countries of Eastern Partnership, the customs union and the free trade with Europe? In our dialogues with our Eastern Partnership friends, we clearly see that the countries that have signed the CFTA and the countries that are in the customs union, we see opportunities for each other rather than barriers and confrontation. Those issues are linked also with the future of Europe and stability of Europe. Georgia is also playing an important role for Europe as contributor to its energy, economic stability. Georgia is a country which is linking two most important areas, the Caspian and the Black Sea basins, and which is contributing to effective functioning as a transit country. Its future is looked upon, our friends and our allies also that are surrounding and that are neighbors with Russia. So with all those questions in mind, we've been preparing very actively for Riga Summit. We have done an impressive homework, and we do believe that Riga Summit and beyond will be contributing to future development of Georgia, will be contributing to future European path of Georgia, and will be finally leading to our declared goal of my country becoming part of the European Union. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President. Mr. Mamikins.
Thank you, Chair. Jūsu ekscelence, godātais prezidenta kungs, man ir patiesa prieks un gods sveikt jūs šeit, Eiropas parlamenta ārlietu komitejā, un man tiešām ir liels prieks, ka tas asociācijas nolīgums starp Eiropas Savienību un Grūziju kas tika veiksmīgi ratificēts Eiropas parlamenta pagājušā gada decembrī, tiek īstenots dzīvē. Un es pirms 2 nedēļām biju Grūzijā, un es ar prieku konstatēju, ka arī vienkārši cilvēki, Grūzijas pilsoņi, jau jūt labumu no tā, ka Grūzijā arvien tuvāk Eiropas Savienībai. Tas ir lieliski. Man bija prieks arī iepazīties un pārliecināties, ka reformas turpinās. Un, protams, ja man atļauts dot kaut kādu ieteikumu vispār, tad mans ieteikums būtu neapstāties, jo šis reformas, ko tik ātrā tempā un tik fantastiski paveicā un turpinā iztenot Grūzijas tauta un valdībā, nav tikai dēļ reformu dēļ. Tas ir temēts uz bērnu un mazbērnu nākotni. Vēlreiz sveicu jūs Eiropas parlamentā un paldies jums, prezident kungs.
Merci infiniment, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président Margvelashvili, je voudrais tout d'abord exprimer ma grande satisfaction pour le fait que vous êtes venu aujourd'hui devant la Commission Affaires étrangères dans une période très trouble que traverse notre voisinage. Je pense qu'il est plus important que jamais de montrer à quel point la relation entre la Géorgie et l'Union européenne est importante pour les deux côtés. J'espère, tout comme mon groupe politique, le PPE, que le sommet de Riga ne manquera pas de prouver notre volonté d'approfondir cette relation et non pas de la laisser telle qu'elle est aujourd'hui. Je crois qu'il faut faire un pas en avant. Le sommet du partenariat oriental a engendré, d'ailleurs dans notre voisinage, de multiples tensions et conflits, la Russie le percevant comme une menace à son influence. Sa réaction a été forte, mais tout aussi fort a été l'engagement des pays comme l'Ukraine, comme la Moldavie, comme la Géorgie. Et 1 an et demi après ce sommet, j'aimerais savoir comment est perçue la Russie dans la Géorgie d'aujourd'hui. Quelle est la perception de la Russie dans votre pays? J'ai vu que récemment, vous avez déclaré que la Russie est une grande menace pour la sécurité, mais est-ce qu'il y a un consensus au niveau de l'élite politique de votre pays là-dessus? Une autre question que j'aimerais vous poser concerne la politique antérieure à la Géorgie, parce que dans votre discours à la nation du mois de mars, vous avez évoqué qu'un des problèmes significatifs du pays est le parallélisme systématique, je crois savoir que c'est votre expression, des structures décisionnelles, qui fait qu'on ne peut pas savoir qui est responsable de quoi. Est-ce que vous pouvez nous parler un peu de cela, parce que c'est très inquiétant, notamment du point de vue de nos relations institutionnelles, et donc j'aimerais avoir plus d'informations. Un grand merci encore une fois.
Dziękuję, panie przewodniczący. Też ogromnie się cieszę z obecności pana prezydenta w naszym gronie, dlatego że Gruzja jest krajem, na którego niepodległości bardzo nam zależy. Niedawno Parlament Europejski podejmował ważne uchwały, w których zwraca uwagę na naszą powinność działań na rzecz umacniania niepodległości demokracji w państwach, które odzyskały niepodległość w ciągu ostatniego ćwierćwiecza. Zapewniam o tym, że będziemy pracować w tym kierunku. Ja bym chciał przy tej okazji zapytać pana prezydenta o sytuację w okupowanych północnych prowincjach Gruzji. Ostatnio zaniepokoiły nas doniesienia o specjalnym układzie wojskowym zawartym przez Rosję z nieuznawaną przez świat Abchazją, rozszerzającą obecność, utrwalającą obecność wojskową Rosji w tej prowincji. No, przy tej okazji oczywiście też bym prosił o informację pana prezydenta na temat sytuacji w regionie Cchinwali w Osetii Południowej, a przy okazji przez kontrast, jak funkcjonuje autonomia Giorgi obecnie w ramach Gruzji. No, też nie ukrywam, że tak jak interesuje nas niepodległość Gruzji, tak samo wszystkich interesuje nas harmonijny rozwój demokracji gruzińskiej, relacje między rządem a opozycją. W ciągu ostatnich wielu miesięcy wielokrotnie rozmawialiśmy o selektywnej sprawiedliwości, o napiętych relacjach między opozycją związaną z poprzednim prezydentem i jego zjednoczonym ruchem narodowym. Chcielibyśmy usłyszeć stanowisko pana prezydenta w tej sprawie. No i oczywiście wyrażając przekonanie, że wszystkim nam zależy na harmonijnych relacjach między rządem i opozycją, dlatego że zarówno stanowi to konstytutywny element demokracji, jak i czynnik umacniający niepodległość i bezpieczeństwo każdego państwa. Napięcia wewnętrzne są zawsze stwarzają okazję do zewnętrznych ingerencji. Bardzo dziękuję.
Thank you, Mr. President. Also, the Liberals welcome the President of Georgia very much. You represent one of the oldest nations in the world, and you have the right to make your own decisions. And many looked away when Russia invaded your country. There are other countries which have also been invaded by Russia, like Moldova and like Ukraine. Do you envisage a closer cooperation by those countries who are directly affected by Russian intervention? And how would this cooperation look like? Thank you, Mr. President.
Vielen Dank. Ich möchte jetzt die Abstimmung und die Rednerliste schließen, weil wir pünktlich um 3:45 mit den Abstimmungen beginnen müssen. Das Wort hat jetzt Frau Hautala.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mr. President, I already had a chance to ask some questions from you from this interesting seminar that you gave a moment ago in this House. But I think it would be worthwhile that you would elaborate a little bit more here in this audience about your view on the reforms of the judiciary, because as you know, it has been a concern here in the House to various degrees. But let me turn to another topic that you also mentioned. You talked about the possibility to somehow find solutions between the two competing trade systems that we are witnessing today. On the other hand, you have the European Union's free trade area, to which you and Ukraine and Moldova are now going to be associated. And then we have the Eurasian Economic Union, the CIS free trade area. So do you see some possibilities to alleviate the incredibly high political tensions that we have due to the Russian aggression on Ukraine today, about trying to bring these two trade systems more closely together? And I'm not talking about being soft on the sanctions that the European Union has directed towards Russia because of the Ukraine crisis.
Thank you, Chair. Dear Mr. President, the situation in Black Sea Basin has changed dramatically throughout the year, and it was already noted in European Parliament in the report of Mr. Pascu. One of the ways that Baltic countries increased the security in our region was a deeper military integration, first of all of Baltic countries, but then including other countries as well. Do you think a deeper military integration between countries in your region would be possible? Maybe a creation of Georgian, Ukrainian, Moldovan battalion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Fortiga.
Thank you, Chair. Excellency, welcome to European Parliament. It is good to see the High Representative of Georgia here speaking, sharing views with members before the Riga summit. Answering your question whether nations which found their independent, sovereign statehood after collapse of Soviet Union deserve their independence, stability and peaceful development? The answer is absolutely yes, they do deserve. And hopefully Riga summit is to convey a very strong message to the world that European Union is very much dedicated to confirm this. I must also tell you about my concerns concerning Georgia, and I am a long-standing, dedicated friend of Georgia. During my recent visit, I was able to meet some of prisoners, outstanding prisoners, former political opponents, members of President Saakashvili's party, and some lawyers. I would like to listen to your remarks concerning prospects for reform of judiciary systems, in particular of getting rid of a very questionable method of pre-trial detention. I think that before Riga summit, it would be good to have some positive developments in this respect.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Indeed, most welcome to the European Parliament. Here I am. As you in Georgia pronounce it, Kabarjoba to Brussels. Mr. President, indeed, you rightly mentioned that the European perspective, which is important for Georgia and Georgian people, is deeply enshrinked into the Georgian mentality. And once you meet people on the streets and in the cities, towns of Georgia, there is no doubt, I mean, what countries, what bloc, what organization Georgian people want to go along and to create a much brighter future. I wonder about the regional cooperation, because in Southern Caucasus there are countries of different orientation, because probably of different reasons, and a great play of geopolitics in this particular region. I wonder, having in mind the indeed uneasy situation regionally, how is the energy cooperation and infrastructure projects which must be built in this region in order to connect Southern Caucasus better with the Turkey and other countries? How you see the prospects of those mega projects to be developed? Thank you.
President as allowed, and a member of the European Parliament in the plenary has an average right of 1 minute to speak.
I'll try to be quick, though let me tell you that, frankly, I'm tempted to answer all the questions in details because they are very interesting and important for reflecting and expressing those important issues and sharing those with you. Relationship with Russia, let me go to that bulk of the questions. Of course, Russia has been a threat to Georgian security and to territorial integrity and sovereignty of my country, and that has happened not only in 2008, actually. I was sharing with colleagues that in the 90s we saw in Georgia something that you see now in Ukraine, and you call it a hybrid war, when we had the occupied territories now currently occupied, and furtherly, unfortunately, those recent agreements with those territories, so-called governments, have even furthered this occupation to the level of annexation. We have seen this in the 90s. We have seen this in the beginning of the 90s, in the end of the 90s. We've seen it in 2008, and for sure this is a threat. Let me tell you that what happened in Ukraine was definitely most passionately experienced probably by Georgians as well, because they were seeing and they were experiencing something that they have seen just some 6 years before. And let me quickly note on this respect that I think that Russia has not paid an enough price in 2008, and that may be made 2014 in Ukraine much more possible, much more realistic, fast on the Russian side. So is there this feeling among people? Yes, there is this feeling. There is feeling of uncertainty, and there is a great demand in hearing a very clear message from our European partners on the questions that I just raised. Do Georgians deserve a clear message on their right to be protected in their free choice of becoming a part of the Western civilization? I believe that those voices should be heard much more clearly and at least as bluntly as Russian politicians put it. And Russian politicians put it in a very clear message. They say that the ex-Soviet Union countries is their backyard and they have a right to decide issues in this backyard with the military means. That means that each of our countries is living under a threat that if there is any kind of mistake, any kind of miscalculation, any kind of uncertainty, Russians will be quick there with military means to solve those issues upon their wish and their decision. With the issue of, and I want to continue and link this issue to this question with the issue of the customs union versus European free trade with Europe. Here as well, I mean, what could be the solution? I've shared my perspective that when we are dealing with our Armenian friends and we are talking about them being in customs union and us being with the CFTA, with the free trade, when we are talking with Belarusians, we all view and think about these cases as possibilities for further prosperity of our countries and not the division lines between our countries. We think about perspectives of deepening economic relationships. Who is confronting the whole concept and taking the issues of trade to issues of geopolitics, to issues of some kind of existential choice? These are politicians from Russian Federation. And what could we do to that? We could have a very clear and a clear response on furthering a European agenda and making it become much more positive, much more solution and future oriented. When we are talking about this context, we are talking about creating small and clear steps, non-confrontational politics, in respect of Georgia, in respect of Moldova, in respect of Ukraine, and showing to Russians, showing to Europeans, showing to Georgians, to other countries of Eastern Partnership that the paradigm of confrontation could be confronted with a positive message, with a positive dynamics of giving and opening opportunities for the countries of Eastern Partnership. On the Georgia, Ukraine, Moldova partnership issue, and naturally this is one of the natural parts of the Eastern Partnership format. Those are the three countries that have furthered their relationships through Eastern Partnerships and taken those relationships to the level of signing the association agreement. What is the perspective there? I think that we have shown partnering on political level. We have shown explicit support to one of us, meaning Ukraine, who is now under serious threat and under serious tension, and we have expressed this on every level. Our Ministry of Foreign Affairs is very active in integrating the appropriate ministries in those countries into a unified dialogue and to building a unified message and approach to the perspective of these three countries. I think that unions are built on the competitive advantages that the countries have. So I would think that we are developing and furthering our relationship in a proper format, doing this based on our value systems, doing this based on our joint approach to the future, to our future foreign policy, doing this on our on supporting each other in humanitarian respect. So if the question is about the military partnership, I believe that it would be more appropriate for Georgia to join NATO as a military partnership format, and it would be building on the let's say, competitive advantage that NATO has in this respect. And we are actually working and that I think would be a much more proper and adequate response to all those challenges in the region. About the internal affairs and internal politics. I have shared today as well that I believe and I'm proud of the reform agenda that has been introduced during these 2 years. Judiciary was one of the most underserved parts of our democratic system. And we have put quite an effort in furthering the reforms in judiciary. And this does not happen overnight. It takes time and it's not easy. But during these 2 years, we have made several steps, and let me inform you briefly about those. And those is, we are agreed and we are starting the reform of the prosecutor's office, which is one of the most problematic areas to be reformed in any of the country, and I believe you understand what I'm saying. I mean, this is part of the judiciary system that needs a very thorough and principled reform, and the political leadership has agreed upon this. The second is the reform in the court system, which has been going very actively and has already produced a system that is not going very swiftly hand in hand with the prosecutor's office, and this is a great precedent for my country's judiciary system. The last are the appointments that are directly linked to me and to my capacity as a president, and I have to inform you, and I'm proud that this has been done by me and by the Parliament, that we have been able to appoint the chairman of the court, and she is non-political, the judges of the court, which are not affiliated with any political parties, and we are furthering this process as well. So, if you ask me, am I concerned about issues in the judiciary? Naturally, there are concerns and there are things that have to be improved. And as you have been properly noting, it's mainly connected with the issue of the pretrial times of the pretrial detention. As a president, I don't get engaged in discussion of concrete issues and concrete cases, but I have expressed my concern that we have to reach the European standard point where normally people who have not committed serious crimes are not put into pretrial detention, or they are not kept there beyond the normal, let's say, European standard of being there for 2 months. But I believe we are much further in our reform agenda, and we have achieved quite a goal in this respect. Are there any questions that I think I basically on the treaty, yeah, I mentioned about the treaties that have been signed, and actually I want to thank our partners and friends who have been commenting on those issues very actively. On the treaties that has been signed by the Russian Federation with the Abkhazia region, we had a very clear message. But on the treaty with the South Ossetia case, we even had a preemptive message from our friends and partners, and we are very much thankful to you for being so precise on this issue and reacting even before the Russian Federation has made this signature, which is absolutely in breach of any kind of international standards. And we feel your support, and we are thankful for this support, definitely. Is that it?
Thank you very much, President, for your remarks. I would like to state that you can absolutely trust the European Parliament that we will on your side, as we have, I think, proved since several years. And I hope that you can develop your country in such a way that the association agreement and the free trade agreement can be fully implemented and can be built the basis for the development of the further European perspective of your country. We wish you all the best by that, and we hope that in such a direction the Riga summit will become a success story. Thank you very much.